Hello everybody, this is Jim Morantz. We're a couple minutes after 12, so how about if we get started? Today we've got a very interesting look at some of the things that we're going to be doing here with SABER and XchangeCore over the next few months leading up to the national level exercise in 2019. So let's get started. What we're going to do today is, since I see a few new folks on the line, give a quick overview of SABER and then talk in detail about how people can play in National Level Exercise 219, which has two parts to it. One of it is how SABER will be playing in National Level Exercise, and then how you can play in that exercise to practice SABER. Whether you are in the central United States area or not, you can still use this as an opportunity to practice your SABER activities. And then we'll tell you exactly how to go about doing that. So, SABER. There's a reason behind SABER, and that's that disasters can be a real disaster for businesses. And if businesses go out of business, the community suffers as well. You can see the statistics there on businesses not reopening and failing quickly. So the key is that the longer a business is out of business, the greater the chance of failure. So for SABER and for a community, after life-saving, the priority of communities should be getting the businesses back in business. So how does SABER contribute to that? SABER was created by the private sector with the goal of providing information sharing. That information sharing has to have two sides to it. It's the provider side. SABER provides a single location for businesses to report their disruption and restoration status. On the consumer side, authorized government agencies, other organizations have to be able to easily get that information. SABER was founded by the organizing group that you see there and has a very straightforward but powerful purpose. Influence government recovery priorities and enable business-to-business collaboration. All of which can be done by providing accurate, timely business status information, which will help businesses get back in business faster. To bring you right up to date, the SABER membership links in through SABER with FEMA's new concept of lifelines. Lifelines are a way to organize preparedness and response activities. Business is critical to many of those lifelines. And SABER in particular focuses on three of the lifelines through members that are in the food, fuel, pharmaceutical, hotel, energy, and water, clothing, etc. The food and water sheltering lifeline, energy through the delivery of fuel, and health and medical. SABER members, types of SABER members deliver large portions of the fuel to the endpoints, gas stations across the country. So SABER and the lifelines is a critical element that links SABER to the most current configuration of emergency preparedness response thinking. And just by way of bragging a little bit, we've won awards. 2017 named the Technology Innovation Award from FEMA's Individual and Community Preparedness Program. And then last year, the International Association of Emergency Managers Public Awareness Award. So SABER's proven. Now, how's it work? That's an important background piece so that you can understand where you as a provider or consumer might fit in. First way it works is, as I said, two different sides. The provider side we're going to deal with on the left-hand side, and then the consumer side on the right. Fully automated connections to some internal business management system through a cloud connection into the technology that sits behind Sabre, which is XchangeCore that we'll talk about in a minute. So fully automated connection, untouched by human hands. The second way is the vast majority of companies maintain on an Excel spreadsheet the status of their companies. And that's what they use to send up the chief executive office and say, this is what we're doing right now. And maybe it'll be color-coded by good or bad, but the spreadsheet is really the way that some of the largest companies in the world provide business status throughout their organization. So what Sabre did was use that XchangeCore technology, which is a information sharing technology developed by the Department of Homeland Security that's now an open source available tool set to convert many different forms of information on the left-hand side into many different forms of information on the right-hand side, as we'll see. So what Sabre does is work with a company to use their exact same spreadsheet so they don't have to do anything different. We work, convert it into the XchangeCore formats, which then transform everything into a standardized data format that's compliant with the National Information Exchange model. Third way is through a partnership with a Sabre member, Spot On Response, they've developed a mobile app that's used in both op centers and for field status reporting that connects directly in to XchangeCore to provide status information about both the company, the business locations, as well as employees if they want to push it down to that level. All that, again, same thing goes in no matter what the source. It is put into XchangeCore and formulated into the standardized format and then pushed out as many different formats. You see them at the bottom there, GeoJSON, GeoRSS, KML, XML, CSV, through both SOAP and REST connections. And what that means to end users who are looking at things is that information can go into just about any application that you're already using. You can go into web portals, either private government or company ones, or out to the public. You can go into incident management systems, WebEOC and eTeam and a bunch of other ones. It can go out into common operating pictures built around ArcGIS. It can go off to a number of different mobile apps that are used for field verification. And my personal favorite, it can go out to a free copy of Google Earth. So that when somebody says, we've got a need to see Sabre information, we can get them installed with a free copy of Google Earth in 10 minutes. So where's that bring us? The technology from the background. Now let's look at the data, because Sabre is data. That's the key. We have two different forms of data that are currently in Sabre, built around open, closed, and limited. Limited hours, limited performance operations, but open, closed, or limited status. There are two different forms. The first one is authoritative. That is information that comes directly from a company. They are providing that information into Sabre in one of those three ways that we talked about. There are approximately 60,000 locations across the country that are represented by the big name members that you see there, plus 40 or so other companies. On the consumer side, 19 state emergency agencies are doing it, a dozen federal agencies, a whole bunch of local governments. That authoritative data says, I can tell you with absolute certainty at this time and date that this store was open, closed, or in limited operations. But there's a second set of ways to get some ideas about what's going on, and that we call proxy. And proxy says, okay, we can get a report on something else that might give us a hint that there's a problem at that location. First one is Hughes produces satellite transceivers and the satellites themselves that sit on top of hotels and gas stations, big box stores, fast food stores. Those satellites are used for a number of things, sometimes credit card transactions, other forms of communications. But what we can tell is that the satellite transceiver isn't communicating. What's that mean? Well, it can be a proxy for that store being closed. I can't tell you authoritatively, but I can tell you, if that store is not doing credit card or other forms of communications, there's a chance that it's closed. We'll leave that as a statement. So proxy means got a chance that it's closed. Second way is some SABER members are reporting information through Healthcare Ready. And Healthcare Ready's proxy is that if a pharmacy hasn't produced a prescription in the last 12 hours, with data coming from prescription organizations, that the pharmacy is not operating. So we've got two different ways to establish the proxy information that covers another 100,000 different locations that are out there. So that current status of what we're bringing into SABER allows us to do what we describe, this open-close limited status, as providing an indicator of crisis. We can, through dots on a map, lists, all the different ways that you would look at that report of what it is, the status of SABER organization, get the number and types of businesses that are reporting either authoritative or proxy. We're starting to look at the extent, the geographic coverage of disruptions, as well as being able to see those stores that are close by that are replacements. I got, a Walmart's, 3 Walmarts are closed here, but 25 miles away, I've got 2 more Walmarts. So from a government planning standpoint, we can start to say, okay, I'm starting to get an indication of the impact and what needs to be restored. In FEMA's Community Lifelines root cause analysis, this open-close limited status addresses the question of what? What's happening out there? Allowing governments to prioritize some short-term operations to stabilize and speed business recovery, as well as this whole process is really low level of effort for business and government to share information that simply says open, close, limited, and here's the interpretation that I can make of it, which is number, type, and scope of the emergency. But there's more, and SABER did that for that open, close, limited for a couple of years. FEMA and other organizations said, okay, you've got this network of people, can you give us more? And out of that, we've evolved something called business status context. That is, it's not just open, close, limited, but what's the context around there? And what we've done most importantly is translate that into what's the problem that business needs to resolve in order to get open. And can they do that alone, or they do need government support for that? Becomes the second set of what do we do next. So the challenge in providing this context is to find out what information could address FEMA's Community Lifelines root cause analysis of the second question after what. It's so what. Well, the so what in this case means, what do I need to do to get the businesses opening faster? What it is that is keeping them that I need to resolve. And we felt good about moving in this direction because of the experiences SABER had in its first couple of years of companies voluntarily providing some contextual information, some notes sometimes. Others would list out whether they were able to have transportation around their facility. They would tell us whether they were on generator. Some of that additional information, the companies were just volunteering. And we felt if we were to develop a set of business status context best practices, we would be able to invite other companies to provide that kind of information. But there was a requirement. It had to be minimally invasive for local businesses because they're trying to get back in business. It had to be maximally valuable for corporate management because if they're going to do anything more, what they're getting in that spreadsheet has to be augmented in a valuable way by this context information. And we wanted to gather information that would help that first mission that I told you about to influence government allocation of recovery response and recovery resources, and enable business-to-business collaboration so businesses can help each other get back in business. Finally, we had to use the technology to translate from what's valuable for business to what's valuable for government. So we set out, and have done this as a project, about learning what more we can learn about conducting business after a disaster. Open Close Limited takes us up to the disaster and the immediate response, but what's the next step that helps us get businesses back in business faster? And from that, we, in all of our discussions and interviews, came up with this set of questions that are a cascading set of questions that is the way business thinks that will get us information that government can use. Starts out with, is the store open? We've been asking that for a while. The answer is yes. There's no impact on that operation. There's no limiting factors. There's no more information needed. So that business can drop off of our radar right away. We're not going to bother them anymore because not bothering business is absolutely critical to success of SABER. All right. So let's say they say it's not open or limited operations. Next question is, all right, is the store damaged or commodities damaged? Those two things are essential. And if they're bad enough that we can't open, then again, we drop them off because no more is needed until we can assess when that can be fixed. But let's say we've got a store and we've got some commodities. Next question is, are your employees available? Because if the employees can't show up, they aren't going to be able to open. And the focus of attention needs to become, how do I get employees to that store? So if employees aren't available, again, no more information is needed until we solve that employee problem. Next, if you have a building, you have commodities, you have employees, are the lights on? Is water and gas available? Are those utilities functioning? And if not, what are you going to do to substitute? And again, that's a threshold. Next, if we can get open, can the customers get to us? If not, why would you bother opening? So if everybody's evacuated and your store is undamaged and you got your commodities, but there's nobody there, why would you open? Well, maybe for first responders, recovery organizations, but it's a question that has to be addressed. Can those customers get to us? Next, if we get customers, can we actually carry out financial transactions? Are my credit cards working? Am I able to take debit cards? And if not, how do we handle taking cash? Finally, if we are selling, are we going to be able to be resupplied? Because if not, how are we going to stay open past the point when I run out of water, when I run out of gas? So that supply chain then comes into play. So from a company standpoint, it says, am I going to get resupplied? From a government question is supply chain affected? If I ask a convenience store in a hurricane zone, tell me about your supply chain, they're going to look blankly. So we need to phrase this information so that somebody at a convenience store can say, I'm going to run out of XYZ, which we then, from the technology standpoint, interpret as they're having a supply chain problem. So there are some English language translations as well as technology translations that takes place. So what we've evolved is this identification of what business wants to know. And the key to that is they want to know what problems they have to overcome in order to reopen. So the problem with operating status, set of conditions there. The first four are a choice. And the last one, the reopening date, becomes a schedule for the future that we can continue to check up on to see whether, in fact, they have reopened. Damage to the facility. Have you lost stock? Do you need some repairs, major repairs? Problem with employees and availability. I don't have enough. I can't get anybody. Hey, they're evacuated. We need credentials, each of which have a ability to forecast out to government what needs to be done, or to other organizations that say, hey, I've got some extra employees over here. You want to hire them temporarily because my store is closed. Lots of ways, if you gather that information, that you can begin to resolve that problem. Problem with utilities. I got something that's preventing me opening, or I've got generator, but I have limited fuel supply. So here's now laying out a resupply issue that becomes essential. I got a problem with customers getting to the store. Well, can they just not drive here? Or are they actually not here because they've been evacuated or there's a curfew or something? The financial transactions one, hey, I'm only taking cash. I can do credit cards, but I'm doing them on those old little slider paper things. But I'm not doing any check cashing, which is critical to the local economy. And then finally, the resupply of commodities. They're not available, can't get there because of roads. They're restricted by curfews or credentials. Those are the essential elements of business status context. And each one of those can be traced from a business problem that gets reported through SABER to a government analysis that says, gee, we got a bunch of companies over there that are all set to open, but the bridge is closed, or we're not letting them in because there are curfews, or some other essential element that people could use to begin to make decisions to improve the operation and the speed with which they are able to reopen those stores. So taking all that, let's take a look at how we're going to be working in National Level Exercise 2019, which is an earthquake in the central United States affecting the CUSEC states, the Central United States Earthquake Consortium states. I think it's 5 states that are going to be most directly affected by it. There are 4 different ways that SABER will be playing in the exercise, and as governments, receivers, or business providers, you can play in the exercise. Even if you're not located in that area, you can practice through SABER. Those 4 are direct connection, a simple spreadsheet upload, the mobile app, and the Sabre Sim Center. The first 3 we've talked about. Let me give you some use cases on them. The first one is direct connection that we're going to look at. That one real quickly. This is making it fully automated, 24/7 reporting of business status to SABER. We have time before the exercise to add companies. It doesn't cost the company anything but time to coordinate with your technical people. And it's not just for the exercise. It's a permanent installation. This will be up, available, running through SABER from now on. If you're interested, give me a call. The second way is a simple spreadsheet upload. There are a couple of different cases that we can envision for this. And let's start out with case number 1, which is probably the most common instance of how business status gets reported these days. Stores call in to a company operations center. Company operations center updates a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet currently, up on the upper left-hand corner, is sent up to the executive offices and people throughout the company use that spreadsheet to understand the status of that business. What Sabre has added to that process is the blue arrows sweeping out of that spreadsheet that gets uploaded to Sabre, where there is a little button for every company that says, hi, I'm Macy's, or I'm Sears, or I'm Walgreens, or Walmart, or anybody else. I'm going to click on that button. Comes up and it says, where's your spreadsheet? You've done it all. You drag it here, or you click on this thing, upload the spreadsheet, and that's all they do. That processes, goes into Sabre, gets transformed into that information, that National Information Exchange Model format, which makes it available. Be available out to all sorts of EOC mapping programs. For the exercise, it's going to be available in the QSEC portal. And we've done this last year for real during the hurricanes, and you see the little dots there. Sabre information comes into that QSEC portal. The QSEC portal is available to everybody who's involved in the exercise. That process is one that the left-hand side, call, op center, spreadsheet, executives, exists everywhere. So if you're a company and you're doing that, we can make the right-hand side very easy for you to add yourselves into. Case number 2 is where district managers or individual stores actually, skipping the need for that coordination of the ops center, which is a small store, so a company that has 12 stores, let's say. They can push down to those individual stores or a district manager who's operating 10 stores, and that information can go directly into Sabre. Same process, into Sabre, click on the buttons, it gets transformed, and it comes back out. But it can not only come to those portals, but it can come back to the headquarters. So it allows the headquarters to be able to use Sabre to gather information from its businesses itself. Case number 3, we now switch over to the government side, where a business emergency operations center is doing sort of the same thing that a company operations center is doing. They're trying to connect to their members and say, what's the status of business in my state or in my region? So they're getting phone calls, they're getting emails, they're going into the Business Emergency Operations Center. Somebody is maintaining a spreadsheet. I've seen some states that have put this into some incident management software. That's great. We can talk about how to get that out of your incident management software into Sabre in order to share it with others. But for now, I would say well over half of the states are still dealing with a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet, you can take and maintain yours 40, 50, 80, 100 companies, getting the phone calls from them, updating them as often as you want. Click into Sabre, and if you go into Sabre and take a look at that member login to see it, you'll see the Maryland Emergency Management Agency, Rhode Island Business Alliance, and a couple of others, that this is the design for them to be able to use a spreadsheet, collecting information from their members, providing it in, getting it, in many of those cases, then into the state emergency information system and the state mapping system. So they're using Sabre to process that public information to then put into a number of different pieces of software. All right, so those are the 3 cases, 3 different ways that you could perhaps envision using the input side of Sabre to provide the information out to your own software. Now let's take a look at the mobile app. Mobile app is the 4th case. And here, as I mentioned, it's more a 2-way flow than the 1-way flow, because Sabre provides situational awareness from a variety of hazard monitoring that we do just to support the organizations. And this is a result of requests from our members saying, hey, this is great, but if we had someplace to go look for, I think these are National Weather Service warnings there, and earthquakes, and you listed, the hurricane overlays, all available handheld devices through Sabre. Secondly, companies, when they're members of Sabre, can provide instructions and plans out to their employees. And then lastly, a company can put out a pager-like alert that makes the phone buzz and ring and have a siren go off, and that says employees, managers, it's time to report in. So that flow of information, of situational awareness, and pushed information out from companies to employees or managers leads to the next step where those employees, managers, use the mobile app to say, "Look, I'm fine, I got a problem," or "bright red there, I am closed." That information then gets provided up to the company, and the company then can define what of that information they want to put out to Sabre, because the company is always the endpoint of a decision for what you want to share publicly. When Sabre is never reaching into data, it's accepting the data that companies provide. So we have the member agreement says, I'm going to provide you what I want to provide you. It can be as much or as little, but I want to provide you with this, you, Sabre, with this information, because I know you're then going to provide it to people who I will know who they are, but I can't promise what they're going to do with it. So information from Sabre is always available. Case number 5 then is back to the Business Emergency Operations Center, which can give the mobile app to members of the state BEOC. And it's going to get the same thing. It's going to get situational awareness monitoring that can go out to your members. The state EOC can provide instructions out to the members. And the state can also launch pager-like alerts to request updates in from the business. So you're reminding people that it's time. That information then goes back to the BEOC, and from the BEOC goes to Sabre. And again, the BEOC will be the controller of what information gets put out to Sabre. Now, the mobile app to report in company status is now available to all Sabre members. Showed you a couple of things about pushing that down, giving it to every single employee. That's not part of the basic mobile app that Sabre is providing. That's additional features from Spot On Response. But giving this out to your corporate headquarters, district managers, or others, that's all part of the deal. It allows the situational awareness to appear on the mobile app. It allows people to sit at the web application and see what's going on. And even the Sabre, you'll note the Sabre status map there is the same tool, the Spot On Response tool, that allows you to get that information. So all that is available. You just need to enroll in Sabre, and we're going to begin pushing this out to folks. And if you want to be on a priority list, you just let me know. The last way that you play in the national level exercise is through the Sabre Sim Center. And in this Sim Center, Sim Cell, we simulate the business status after the business has stopped practicing. We've worked with exercises for 4 years or more now with our members. And the members all say, sure, I'll play for a couple of hours. I'll do a couple of uploads. I'll do one each morning. But I'm not committing, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. I think this exercise is. I'm not committing to be there for all that. So businesses may only practice for a couple or a few hours directly putting information into Sabre. But our SimCell coordinates with the business about what their status is and so that they are following the simulation. We use models from FEMA and CUSEC. I'm working with the CUSEC folks right now to simulate appropriate business status throughout the exercise. This is what's going to happen over the 6 days of the exercise. If a business comes in and wants to play on day number 3, we say, these are the stores that you should be closing, either through a spreadsheet, in which case we can provide the spreadsheet, or however you want to practice if you're using the mobile app. These are the ones that you ought to be closing. These are the ones that might be reopening, so that we're matching up with the FEMA and CUSEC stimulus material for the scenario. Same process then comes out into the CUSEC portal and any other EOC or mapping software that's being used, or your own personal software. So that's the 4th way in which we are doing it. Now, just a couple views of the result of doing this sharing. And these are just the pretty views, as it were. Here's an example. This is the CUSEC private sector status dashboard that we used during the actual hurricanes of last year. And this is real world stuff. CUSEC is going to be not only hosting this board, but they're actually going to be hosting the SABER data. They're going to be gathering up data and hosting it as a ArcGIS feature layer, gathering it from SABER, putting it into an ArcGIS feature layer, which makes it available to this particular dashboard, but also exposes it out off of the regular ArcGIS online inventory list of stuff that they have there to anybody else who wants to do it. So additional states are able to pull that information in. Key credits to Georgia Emergency Management Agency and Arizona Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, who were very, very instrumental in enabling this connection into ArcGIS. And in fact, here's what Georgia did. This is some real hurricane information from a couple of years ago, I think it was. Georgia using the ArcGIS tools, able to build this out of the SABER data, hundreds of locations closed in Georgia, ability to break down the business disruption categories and show where those outages or closures were. WebEOC, you use WebEOC, it's not as exciting, but you can bring it in. All the information that from SABER goes right into WebEOC. Just an example, FEMA does analysis that they publish to the Geo portal. This again, one of the Florida hurricanes from a while back. The Florida Common Operating Picture, another example of driving information into a geospatial look, and SABER's business reporting included there. TrustedOps.com, Eric Cannon and his group brought SABER information into Hurricane Michael through the Unified Information Portal. Saberspace.org status map, the Spot On Response Partner mobile app, both of which are available. And the status map is an easy way to look at the information. It's at saberspace.org, and you can pull it up anytime. And right now we have in that fully automated form, Walmart is our only participant in fully automated form, and if you go there now and there's a Walmart store, you'll see one that might be closed because a pipe broke or something like that. And then, as I mentioned, my favorite, free copy of Google Earth. Anybody who doesn't have anything, we can give you something really fast. So, how do we do this? How are we going to play in 2019? And by doing so, you become a permanent member of SABER. Let's start first with the status consumer. Governments in general, but businesses also are eligible to consume the information. Enroll at saberspace.org. We'll send you a guide to working with SABER status data that tells you how to take the SABER information and put it into your own software. If you don't have software, I can set you up with Google Earth. That's described in there. Or you can say, hey, I'm just going to view it on the SABER status map. That's completely fine. Now, though, you can also apply to get the Sabre mobile app, which will allow you to carry that Sabre status map around and provide business status and situational awareness. With the bottom line there, remember, consuming Sabre status costs nothing. It's data. It's available for you. All you have to do is enroll, and the Sabre status is available. Now, a status provider, marginally more difficult. Going to be a business, or in that configuration we talked about, a state or a regional BEOC. Again, starts by enrolling at saberspace.org. Then you decide how you want to play, spreadsheet or the mobile app. If you're going to do a spreadsheet, we need to coordinate in advance so that you can say, this is what the spreadsheet should look like. If you don't have one, we've got a couple of examples. But we're going to then take your spreadsheet and create an input template that works when you click that button to read your spreadsheet and put it into XchangeCore, translate it into the name-conforming data, and then expose it out to everybody else. The other choice, or you can do both, use the mobile app to provide updates and to get the situational awareness. Sabre and QSEC will work together to provide the likelihood of impact models for your locations to help guide your play. And we'll do that in a couple of different ways. Next month, we might actually do a session on that. Not certain, but might get that far. And then there are two different ways to play. You can actively participate. You can do as many updates as you want to. Or there's a passive participation through the Sabre Sim Cell, as I mentioned before. So you could play for a little while and say, hey, do 3 more updates for me. Follow along with a scenario. Again, remember, providing Sabre status costs nothing but your time to get set up with us. So what's in it for you? Well, when you enroll, you're going to become a Sabre member. You're going to be able to get the Sabre mobile app, and you're going to be able to participate in Shaken Fury. And that is going to be a great experience. And in fact, I think 2 of these sessions from now, 2 months from now, we're going to have a session called Get Ready for Hurricane Season, Participate in an Earthquake Exercise. Because it doesn't matter what the hazard is, your businesses are going to need support. They're going to close, they're going to reopen, they're going to need assistance, and that's going to become the lifeblood of the community. Let me invite you all to participate, join Sabre, and play in this exercise. We're going to do a couple of little mini simulations in the weeks before the exercise so you can get up to speed on how this actually works. And I thank each and every one of you for joining today. And tune in next month. Your announcement will come out about the subject for the next month's Sabre XchangeCore webinar. And appreciate all of you joining today. Thank you very much, and we will talk next month.